Thank you. Mr. McGarvey, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. And went to law school, took a couple of semesters of constitutional law, and this is all really dense stuff. So I want to break this down a little bit and make it simpler. We're talking about these dense legal technical terms, but I think we can say what's really going on here, because this is more. This isn't a story of left versus right. This is not a story of urban versus rural. This is not a story of the Congress versus the VA. This is the classic tale of David versus Goliath, the big guy versus the little guy, the Rebel Alliance versus the Galactic Empire, if you will. Because what's happening here is that federal judges, a politically unaccountable class of elite law school educated individuals, are giving themselves more power over the people we represent and over the public servants and experts and agencies who have spent years on these topics, and importantly, whose heads are accountable to presidential elections every 4 years and congressional oversight all the time. I think everybody on this committee knows how often we drag the VA into Congress. So why is this important? Because rich lawyers, lobbying firms, claim sharks, think tanks who are funded by big business and the Koch brothers, like the two we have here in front of us today, and others with time and money and influence to bring lawsuits can hire their own experts who will try to get unelected judges to make laws that shockingly benefit them. So let's bring this down to earth with an example of how this could affect our vets at home. That's why we're here, to talk about how this impacts our veterans. You know, the VA has made regulations, we've done some in this committee, to conduct the oversight of schools receiving GI Bill money. However, after this Supreme Court decision, a shady for-profit school could sue the VA, saying that their interpretation of how the VA conducts oversight is too expansive. An unelected judge would now have more latitude to say if the VA stepped out of line, even if the VA's implementation is exactly in line with what we intended to protect our veterans. So now this shady school has the money to hire rich DC lawyers and win the case, allowing them to make money while scamming our veterans at home. This is big versus little. This is rich corporations against the guy sitting in VFW 1181 in Louisville, Kentucky. And after this Supreme Court decision, Congress is going to have to be even more explicit, even more technical when writing laws, lest a rogue judge decide to add their own interpretation without accountability. But to do that, we have to have the dedicated resources in the legislative branch appropriations to ensure that we have the staff and the expertise we need. So I'm glad we have CRS testifying today, and I want to get it down to you guys. Mr. Gaffney, has the number of congressional staff increased or decreased since the Chevron decision in 1984?
We don't have exact numbers, but according to estimates, they have decreased since that time.
Okay. Has the number of committee staff gone up or down since Chevron?
It appears that those have also gone down.
How about the number of CRS staff? Has it grown since 1984?
I don't have that number in front of me, unfortunately.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to ask this, but the question is rhetorical. Has Congress's work generally become more complicated or less complicated in the last 40 years? Think about that. We are turning this power over to unelected judges and rich corporations and lawyers who have the time, energy to get what they want out of unelected federal officials. We're depriving our veterans of the expertise and service that they need to make sure they're getting what they have. I think we need more capacity in Congress to take care of our veterans and to make sure, and this is really important, that the decision-making stays closest to where it needs to be, not in the hands of think tanks and corporations and DC lawyers, but with the people. And the people have their power through their representatives, the representatives they elected to implement this legislation on their behalf, not to the unelected judges. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.